Welcome, everybody, inside the coach's office. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, alongside my co-host, Coach Brian Barnes. And Brian, we got a really great guest here with us tonight. We're going to go ahead and get right into it. He is a writer and analyst for CBS Sports and the host of one of our favorite podcasts going right now, Cover 3 podcast. It is Chip Patterson. Chip, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I appreciate the kind words, and always fun to talk football with members of the Cover 3 tailgate.
Absolutely. So, Chip, we're going to get into some local talk with Michigan and Michigan State and get into some of the issues they got going on. But, if somebody has covered the sport from a national perspective, I want to get your perspective on, in your opinion, on just kind of the state of college football right now. It's kind of a bit of a chaotic situation right now with everything that's going on. What is your kind of opinion on total in terms of what the state of college football is right now?
It's so funny because this is inside the coach's office. Coaches will tell you words like unsustainable, we can't keep going like this. It's total chaos. Yeah. What was the anecdote from this week? We're cutting up NFL preseason games for our college front office, it's just ways that you would have never imagined it from the coaching side. And all the TV executives love it, right? Look at the ratings, best ratings ever. And how do those two things line up with each other? I heard something, or I read something, today that was a good, recentering thing for me as we prepare for the season, which is college football is awesome, has always been awesome because college football players are cool. The young man, the athlete at that point in their development, just sort of like harnessing their powers, the games as they are played, as we're trusting 18 to 22-year-olds to be able to execute at the highest level on the biggest stage. College football is always going to have a special place in the hearts of the American sports fan. Now, do we need college football all the way until February 1st? When you're looking at how much college football could we do? Is there a point where you water things down and where you just make everything so big, whether it's the conferences so big or the playoffs so big that it's just you almost overwhelm what is an American audience that loves it? I think college football is in a great state because when you talk to the players, the college football player is still having the time of their life in the same way that they have all through the generations. Now, look, the old heads will point to the NIL and what these kids are wearing to media days and been like, it ain't like it was in all the generations. And I hear them on that. But I think college football is in a great state overall, but we are really dealing with some growing pains in terms of trying to figure out what it's going to look like getting into the future.
You're right. And keeping the main thing is the players. And I think that's a fantastic point you make. Do you think, though, like if there's going to be a breaking point, like you said, like some of the coaches have said it's not sustainable, playing into February is not ideal. What's the breaking point for things to really either change or stop going the way they're going? Can you speak on that?
Yeah. I don't think we're there yet. And I don't know, we might have already passed it. Sometimes breaking point, you don't know when you've already passed it, right? We go back and we circle something as historians and try to say, well, that was actually when everything turned. And who knows, maybe it was this week, right? Maybe it was this week with NFL players that are just trying, walking right into this thing. Maybe it's been this offseason with the college basketball coaches and what college basketball has been dealing with. Heck, maybe it's Dusty May going to the NBA and telling everybody in the NBA, like, guys, here's all the ways that, things are really messed up. Maybe we have already had the breaking point in terms of where we'll finally get. I think that the two things we're fighting up against are, number one, leadership at the university level often changes, every 4 to 5 years? A lot of these people are moving through these jobs thinking about their next job. And in that sense, they don't really want to have blood on their hands. They don't want to be the ones that really mess up the status quo, because messing up the status quo fundamentally in big-time college sports means probably taking power, jobs, or resources away from something and redirecting it towards something else. And so maybe the breaking point could have been the private equity deal with the Big Ten that ended up getting voted down, right? Maybe it could have been that. I took from that, and this isn't interesting, I took from that we might not be able to have any of these crazy super leagues that people talk about. Like when everyone talks about we're going to have 68 teams, we're going to break away, we're going to make our own rules, we're going to reorganize the conferences, and everybody has so much fun making their conferences, and I do too, and reimagining what college football could look like in some sort of semi-professional super league. But the problem is I just don't see there being enough university leadership that would buy into that kind of program. Instead, I think the changes are going to be small. It's going to be Band-Aids because no one wants to stray from the status quo and shake things up too bad when it comes to the university presidents. If I was to be very generalist, painting with a broad stroke, perhaps unfair to the many university presidents who are probably in your audience, I think that in general, it's set up for slow changes, this expansion, this realignment. And you know what it might be? It might be a new NCAA subdivision, right? Like we at one point, we've had different organizations of guys, we need to break Division 1A and 1AA. We've got to draw a line in the sand because these guys are not playing the same sport. And I think that it could be something more like that, where it's not a radical private equity pitched 68-team super league that everybody breaks off and joins together. I think it would be something that would probably look a lot more like the modern college sports, college football structure, but maybe just as another subdivision, a top-level subdivision.
You mentioned that we're not yet at the end game of this. It's a lot of growing pains, kind of in a transitional stage. And I think we're seeing that with the playoff system as well. We're seeing changes with it. It's currently a 12-team playoff. I'm curious what your opinion is in terms of what is your preferred playoff system, and where do you see the end game of where this playoff system is going to be? Do you think we're going to end up, when it's all said and done, at a 24-team playoff?
I don't prefer the 4-team. Okay. I liked the 4-team schedule, like the calendar, a little bit better because it was similar to the BCS, right? Remember the BCS championship game would be out there on the 6th, yep. Right? Or the 7th. It would be somewhat similar to what we had with the semifinals on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day championship. I think I like that calendar the best. I think most of the college football audience once they get through New Year's Day is kind of like, all right, NFL playoff time. And that's kind of all we're thinking about. That's tough. That's tough competition there. So I'm aware of the calendar more than anything. I don't want to be playing until February. I think 4-team was bad because of the way the college football playoff was messaged. Because remember, it was all about who's in. You can't tell all of college football that the whole world revolves around the playoff and then no one ever gets invited to the playoff. You need college football to be great and buzzing everywhere. I agree with that. People who are pro expansion talk about how you need more meaningful games and more invested programs. And I agree with that portion. I don't always agree with what they're selling, but I will at least agree with that argument in terms of you got to have somebody with some skin. We had a decade where it was 4 programs took up almost all of the college football playoff spots. And you can't come back the next season at the beginning of the year being the most important thing is the college football playoff. That's why I say the way it was messaged, right? I didn't like the way that it was messaged when the playoff was only the top 4 teams. So I'm tolerating 12. I'm okay. It's interesting. I've had to do 1 million projected college football playoff brackets, in advance of the year. And when you actually game these things out, you're like, hey, this is kind of fun. This would be really fun to see all these matchups, to see these rematches, to see these storylines on the biggest stages. My 6-year-old son loves brackets. We just sit around drawing brackets all day. And he's asking me, he's like, all right, so if Alabama and LSU play in the 8-9 game in the first round, I would be like, oh, and that'd be a rematch of the November battle. And, you can imagine all the different ways that it would be cool. Alabama, Oklahoma, remember? It was a rematch, but it wasn't boring. It had a little bit of pop, a little bit of intrigue to it. I'm tolerating the 12-team. My only thing that I outwardly like about a 24-team playoff is that I think it would create a conversation around college football that would be more realistic to the median middle of the road college football fan base, which is that if you finish in the AP top 25, it was a good season. Like most college football fan bases think if you want to have a good season, it was a year that finished with a tiny little number beside your name. You know, it's not all the Ohio States of the world that never even leave the top 10, right? I mean, it's most college football fans with their school just want to be ranked. And what does a 24-team playoff do? It encompasses most of the top 25. So I could rock with that if it does end up going there. Sorry.
I think our biggest fear up here is that, like, obviously the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry is special and that game is special. And it'll always be competitive. It'll always be unique. It'll always be a big deal. But, you know, we had the starting quarterback at Michigan up here make a comment recently that the game is just now kind of just a game, right? And that could just be an immature kid making that comment. But there's kind of a fear that if we get to 24 teams and those two teams in particular are in the playoffs, regardless of what happens to that outcome, that's what makes us fearful up here. So on one side, I think like the college football playoff games, I liked it more than I thought I would, Chip, because I like the home games on campus, super cool stuff. That I think is the biggest fear up here. Is that also happening in other places in the country, or do you think that's just unique to Michigan and Ohio State fans?
Well, I mean, that game is all time. I mean, Yankees Sox. I mean, it's an all time rivalry. So you should feel protective. That's why it is one of the best rivalries of all time, because you're going to feel protective about this. But let me bring up something that I can speak to with, we got the Cave, Chapel Hill's oldest tavern. I'm a North Carolina alum. Carolina Duke playing basketball sometimes 3 times a year. It's still awesome every single time. They're guaranteed 2 games a year, and they're bangers, right? I mean, it's just and it doesn't even matter what happened in the first game. Like whatever happened in the first game, you could throw that out the window because it's going to be a brand new game because the level of play that is demanded. And I would say for Bryce's comment, there could be some of his own trying to like get in the mindset that he needs to get in to take this one game at a time, to have the faceless opponent like that. For a sophomore quarterback with those kinds of talents and those kinds of expectations, I don't need him to be the heartbeat of my team. You know who that is? That's to be Rod Moore. Go ask Rod Moore what that game means. You know, like go to Jordan Marshall. You go to some of those other guys. Ask them what that game means, and they'll give you probably an answer that's closer to the heartbeat of the locker room for your ascending sophomore quarterback. Buddy, whatever you need to tell yourself to be able to go out there and give me 25 touchdowns and 6 interceptions and not something that's a little closer to what was it last year? 18-9, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we brought up Michigan. Want to get your opinion on the Michigan Wolverines this season. Obviously, a transitional season this year, bringing in Kyle Whittingham from the University of Utah, trying to bring some stability to the program with everything when I was Sharon Moore and his firing. What were your thoughts on the hiring of Kyle Whittingham, and what do you think about Michigan this season and kind of what their ceiling is for this year?
Quick fact check for myself: 17-9, and that we were going total touchdowns there. 11 passing.
We won't hold it against you.
I gave him an extra one, so I could have let it stand. But just I want to keep I want to keep the journalistic integrity of inside the coach's office at the highest level.
There you go.
We appreciate that.
I'm gonna be there. I am buying more stock after Big Ten Media Days, after talking to Kyle Whittingham, after talking to Bryce Underwood, after sort of putting myself in the shoes of the leadership on this team in terms of what they're never going to talk about in terms of having to deal with last season. Like the all of that falling apart, it couldn't have all just been when the news breaks publicly, it couldn't have been the first time that they got any wind that something was going on, right? I mean, it's just you understood on some level at some point before I found out that there was an issue with the leadership of your football program, And I don't know when everybody in that locker room was dealing with that. And I don't know what that was like to then quickly turn around and in comes Witt. And now all of a sudden we got a new offseason program and here's Jay Hill and here's Jason Beck and hey, Bryce, here's a new offense. And just the way that everything went probably did lead to some results during spring practice and in the spring game that weren't great, and maybe the way that those relationships have continued to build as we get into, the month of April, the month of May, the month of June, and it becomes not just a mental intake, but just a relational, like getting to know each other and getting to get comfortable. I think that they are going to be a really, really good football team. I was asking about JJ Buchanan, and you start to get the sense that it's a roster that has a lot of unique and very, very special people. Savion Hyder's another one, just a very unique, special player. I don't know if the too deep on both sides of the ball is overloaded and stuffed with unique special players, but Bryce Underwood, throw him up there too. I mean, there's just some dudes on here. Obviously John Henry Daly running full go is another one. It's just, there are a lot of really special dudes. Now, can everybody stay healthy? And if the depth is tested, are guys ready to step up? Because here's the deal. You're playing one of the toughest schedules in the entire country. And you could be a better team than you were last season and have the exact same record. So, can you be ready? Can the special players be extra special? And can the depth really answer the question if they're tested?
The other big program in the state of Michigan State, also going into the season with a new head coach, Pat Fitzgerald taking over for the Spartans. What are your thoughts on that hire, Pat Fitzgerald taking over at Michigan State, and kind of where do you think Michigan State is, and what kind of their ceiling could be this year too?
I'm not bullish on Michigan State's ceiling this year. I think that there's too much reliance on vibes, and vibes might only get you one extra win. Like the hire of Pat, this was one thing that I thought about that I do feel strongly. The hire of Pat Fitzgerald was much needed for the Michigan State program and the Michigan State locker room as it was. That Pat Fitzgerald answers a lot of questions to be able to better connect the football team to the fan base, to the university. Like he is absolutely going to be able to do that. Also, the hire of Pat Fitzgerald, because of his Big Ten institutional knowledge, should be worth one Big Ten win. Okay. He needs to be able to go out there, and because he's Pat Fitzgerald and he knows how to win these games, he needs to be able to go out there and be whatever the roster is, he needs to be 1+. And I think he can be 1+. But I don't know if the roster right now is set up for a lot of Big Ten wins against this Big Ten schedule. So it kind of looks like one of those 4-8, 5-7 kind of years. I'm not ready to call Michigan State a bowl team. I think that if they get stuck and they need to be able to score quick, do they have difference makers at the pass catching position to be able to go out there and make the plays? If they get stuck in a hole and they can't kind of control the game, I think they'll be tougher. Yeah, I think that a lot of, again, the Pat Fitzgerald vibe stuff, I think will matter and have an actual football impact compared to last season, certainly. But I just don't know right now if the talent level is there to be able to level up in the Big Ten pecking order.
Hey, Dan, I know we're getting kind of close to the end already, and I saw Chip's bracket reveal, but is it all right to ask Chip right now? I'm curious what his, at least your Final Four teams, Chip. Yeah. Like, what were you thinking? Who are the elite teams? Who's going to be in the Final Four for you? And then who ultimately do you think will be national champions?
Okay,
not to put you on the spot, but
no. I mean, I told you I've been doing it all over. I just want to make sure that I'm consistent. Well, so step number one, because I wanted to have, again, the utmost journalistic integrity with something as serious as a college football playoff bracket prediction in the month of August, is I kind of gamed out the regular season, right, to be able to seed it right, the way 1 through 12, not just throw teams in there and then play it out. I want to really set the stage. So the way that I had it, Notre Dame went 12-0, got the number 1 seed. Georgia wins the SEC again. They end up getting the number 2 seed. Indiana beats Oregon in the Big Ten title game. Indiana up to 3, Oregon down to 5, because Miami, which went undefeated in ACC play, is ACC champion, ends up getting the 4. Ohio State, I had shut out of the Big Ten title game because of a head-to-head loss to Indiana. One of those where if you look at the tiebreaker scenarios, because not all three of them are going to play each other, Ohio State could pick up loss to Indiana, loss to Oregon, be a 10-2 team, maybe one of the best in the country, and still end up not playing in the Big Ten title game. That kind of scenario for me, a 10-2 Buckeyes. So I go with them at 6. Texas Tech, Big 12 champion at 7. And then this is when all the committees, this is when all the SEC's crying to the committee pays off. Committee don't know what to do, so they just start stuffing the bracket with SEC teams. All right, we got Texas at 8. We got LSU at 9. We got Ole Miss at 10. And we got Oklahoma at 11. And I got JMU as my 12. I will say I was, trying to I was like, who in a non-Boise world could end up being there? I think the teams in the American are all going to beat up on each other, so it's going to be hard to have a high win total. And I went to James Madison, Billy Napier taking over a program that has really good foundational bones. If they get by ODU early in the season, they could end up with a really, really high win total and win in the Sun Belt. So maybe JMU is my 12. The way that I've got it gaming out, I just gave you the seeds. Number 5, Oregon knocks out number 4, Miami to make the semifinals. Number 8, Texas knocks out number 1, Notre Dame to make the semifinals. Number 6, Ohio State knocks out number 3, Indiana, which, sure, I don't know, coin flip each way. And then I've got number 2, Georgia. So Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State is my Final Four. Ohio State over Oregon is my title game.
Man, Ohio State. There you go.
As a 6 seed, or and that's the thing about this is that the way that a team goes through the season, the imbalance of schedules. Sometimes the most dangerous team. I mean, Miami was a 10 seed.
Yeah. Well, and you never know, not playing in that extra game, the Big Ten championship game, like it's another week to get healthy.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Chip, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. Where can everybody find your work?
The Cover 3 podcast is the best way to come and find us. YouTube.com/Cover3 if you want to watch us live. We are live at 11 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, as well as Saturday nights at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. But, of course, we are also available wherever you get your podcasts. And now, literally as of this week, on Paramount Plus. So if you're on Paramount Plus, search for Cover 3. We're on there. Add us to your list.
Well, your time's very valuable, so we greatly appreciate you spending some of it with us. So thank you.
Sounds good. Y'all be well.
Awesome. Thanks, Chip. Have a great night.
Chip.
There you go, Brian.
That was awesome.
I know you got to get going too, but any quick thoughts on what we heard from Chip there?
No, not really a surprise. I think his take, it sounds like the national take on Michigan is that they're going to be really good. He thinks they could be really good, but to his point, the schedule is still pretty tough, so they could be better but have a similar record.
Still be 9-3 and be a much better team.
I think that's pretty common as well, locally and nationally, where they kind of feel like the talent level might not be here yet, but Pat Fitzgerald and his mindset and what he does should be able to get an extra win for them. So it's gonna be fascinating.
Yeah, well, it's a good way for us to start kicking off football season, Brian, and getting excited. Just a quick thought. First couple weeks coaching college football. How's it been? How you been? How'd you like it?
Yeah, go Blue Devils, man. Lawrence Tech University, NAI school in Southfield, Michigan. Loving it. Great group of guys, great players. It was awesome. Chip talking about the players, and they bought in and they're passionate about being here. It's a lot of fun. So it's football at a great level, and I'm enjoying it, having a blast.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and let you get back to it. We'll be back on Sunday night at 7. We have a special guest, Dennis Fithian. We're going to get really in depth with Michigan football. Really looking forward to that. But thanks again for Chip Patterson from CBS Sports. Awesome to get a chance to get his opinion both locally and nationally on the game of college football. But that's going to do it for tonight. For Coach Barnes, I'm Dan Murphy.